Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance and watched the stars. Space was quiet out here, near the edge of human territory. Too quiet. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he kept holding the cup anyway. He gave his hands. Something to do while he waited? The Defiance was a big ship. One of the biggest the humans had ever built. She carried enough weapons to level a small moon and enough armor to take hits from anything the galaxy could throw at her. But right now, she felt small against the endless black of space. "Captain, I'm getting something on long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Commander Ben Carter from the weapons station. His voice was calm, but Jake could hear the edge in it. Ben had been in space long enough to know when something was wrong. "Kinda something?" Jake asked. He set his coffee cup down and moved to look at the sensor display. Green dots moved across the screen like slow fireflies. Ships, sir, a lot of them, coming in from the Kepler system. Ben's fingers danced over. "His controls, I count at least 12 vessels. Maybe more. They're still pretty far out." Commander Lisa Hayes looked up from her communications station. She was young for a commander, but smart. Smarter than most people Jake had served with. "Should I try to contact them, Captain?" "Not yet." Jake studied the display. The ships were moving in a formation he didn't recognize. Too organized for pirates. Too careful for merchants. "Ben, can you tell what kind of ships they are?" "Working on it, sir." Ben squinted at his screen. "Computer says they're not in our database. The design is ... weird, like nothing I've ever seen." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Unknown ships in human space usually meant trouble. Big trouble. "How long until they reach us?" "At current speed, about 30 minutes, sir." "Lisa, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have unknown contacts in the Outer Rim. Request backup if available." Jake moved back to his captain's chair. The worn leather felt familiar under his hands. "Ben, charge the weapons, but don't target anything yet. Let's not start a fight if we don't have to." The bridge got busy. People moved with the quick, sure motions of a trained crew. Jake had served with most of these people for 3 years. They trusted him, and he trusted them. That mattered out here where the nearest help was weeks away. "Captain," said Navigator Commander Chris Taylor, "those ships just changed course. They're heading straight for us now." Jake watched the dots on the screen adjust their path. Whatever these aliens wanted, they had decided the Defiance was important enough to investigate. "Time to contact?" 15 minutes, sir." "Lisa, open a channel. Let's see if they want to talk." Lisa's hands moved over her controls. "Channel open, sir. Broadcasting on all standard frequencies." Jake stood up. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel USS Defiance. You are entering human space. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." For a long moment, there was nothing but static. Then the main screen flickered and filled with an alien face. The creature looked almost human, but not quite right. Its skin was pale blue and seemed to shimmer in the light. Its eyes were too large and completely black. When it spoke, its voice was soft and musical, but the words came through the translator as cold and formal. "Greetings, Captain Morrison. I am Admiral Crixtal of the Zephyrian Collective. We request safe passage through your territory. We mean no harm to your people." Jake studied the alien's face. It was hard to read emotions on features so different from human ones, but something about Admiral Crixtal seemed nervous. "Admiral, you're welcome to pass through our space, but I need to ask why you're here. This sector doesn't lead to any major trade routes." The alien paused before answering. "We are conducting scientific research in the Outer Rim. Your space provides the most direct route to our destination." It was a reasonable answer, but something felt wrong about it. Jake had been in space long enough to know when someone wasn't telling the whole truth. "I see. Well, you're free to continue on your way. Is there anything else we can help you with?" "No, Captain. We'll be on our way shortly." The screen went dark. Jake frowned and looked at his crew. "Ben, what's their position now?" "They've stopped, sir. About 50,000 kilometers out." "Just sitting there? That's strange." Jake moved to Ben's station and looked at the tactical display. The alien ships had formed a perfect circle around the Defiance, but they were staying far away. Much farther than they needed to be for a simple conversation. "Lisa, are they scanning us?" Lisa checked her instruments. "No, sir. No active scans detected. They're just ... watching." Commander Hayes spoke up from her station. "Captain, I'm reading some strange energy signatures from their ships. It looks like they're running full power to their sensor arrays, but they're not using them." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. In his experience, when someone had weapons ready but didn't use them, it usually meant they were afraid of something. But what could make aliens with superior technology afraid of one human ship? "Ben, what's our weapons status?" "It's all systems ready, sir. We could take maybe 3 or 4 of their ships before they overwhelmed us, but with 12 vessels... Ben shrugged. They both knew the math. "Sir," Chris called from the navigation station. "I'm plotting possible escape routes. If we need to. Run. I can get us back to Earth space in about 6 hours." Jake nodded, but he kept watching the alien ships on the display. They had enough firepower to destroy the Defiance easily, but they weren't attacking. They weren't even coming closer. It was like they were waiting for something. "Lisa, can you pick up any of their internal communications?" "I'm trying, sir. Their encryption is very advanced, but I'm getting fragments." Lisa adjusted her earpiece and concentrated. "It sounds like they're arguing about something. I keep hearing references to scanning protocols and safety measures." "Safety measures?" Jake's frown deepened. What kind of safety measures would keep an advanced alien race from scanning a human ship? Captain Ben said quietly. "I've been thinking. If they wanted to attack us, they would have done it by now. If they just wanted to pass through our space, they would have kept moving." "So why are they just sitting there?" It was a good question. Jake had been wondering the same thing. The alien ships had all the advantages. Better technology, more ships, superior weapons. But they were acting like the Defiance was the dangerous one. "I don't know, Ben, but I don't like it." Jake moved back to his chair. "All stations maintain yellow alert. I want everyone ready for anything." The minutes ticked by slowly. The alien ships stayed in their circle, neither advancing nor retreating. Their weapons were powered, but not targeted. Their sensors were active, but not scanning. It was the strangest standoff Jake had ever been part of. "Sir," Lisa said suddenly, "I'm getting more chatter from their fleet. They keep mentioning something called Category Omega Protocols. Does that mean anything to you?" Jake shook his head. "Never heard of it. Keep listening." He watched the alien ships hold their position. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. Something that might explain why the most advanced species in the galaxy seemed afraid to get too close to a single human warship. The USS Defiance waited in the darkness of space, surrounded by aliens who could destroy her, but chose not to. Somewhere in that choice lay a mystery that would change everything Jake thought he knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. 6 months earlier, the Zephyrian research vessel Mine Probe drifted through empty space near the Vega system. Science Officer Veltar worked at his station, running scans on nearby asteroids. It was boring work, but the collective needed data. On mineral deposits in this sector, the ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. Most of the crew was in their meditation cycles, letting their minds link together in the peaceful way of their people. Veltar envied them. As the science officer, he had to stay awake and alert, watching the sensors for anything unusual. That's when the human ship appeared. It came out of nowhere, dropping from faster-than-light travel right in front of them. The vessel was small compared to the Mine Probe, but it moved with purpose. Sharp angles and aggressive lines marked it as a warship. The name USS Ranger was painted on its hull in bold letters. Veltar immediately called for Admiral Dexanol. The admiral arrived on the bridge within minutes, his blue skin shimmering with concern. Like all Zephyrians, he was tall and thin, with large black eyes that could see into the ultraviolet spectrum. Report, Admiral Dexanol said in the musical language of his people. Unknown vessel. Admiral human design. It appears to be conducting patrol operations. Veltar adjusted his instruments. They have not attempted to communicate. Admiral Dexanol studied the human ship on the main display. The collective had encountered humans before, but only in diplomatic settings. This was his first time seeing one of their warships up close. Begin standard scanning procedures, the Admiral ordered. I want to know everything about that vessel. Crew complement, weapon systems, technological capabilities, everything. Veltar nodded and began powering up the deep scan arrays. Their technology was far superior to most species in the galaxy. They could peer through the hull of any ship and map every circuit, every room, every thought of the crew inside. The mind probe scanners were the best the collective had ever built. They could analyze the atomic structure of metals, track the flow of electrons through computer systems, and even read the neural patterns of living beings. No ship had ever been able to hide its secrets from Zephyrian technology. Veltar activated the scanning beam and directed it toward the human vessel. At first, everything seemed normal. The scanners mapped the exterior of the USS Ranger Isley. The ship was well built, but crude compared to Zephyrian designs. Its armor was thick but heavy. Its weapons were powerful but inefficient. Typical human engineering, functional but not elegant. Then the scanners penetrated the hull. The first thing they detected was the ship's computer system. It was primitive by Zephyrian standards, but it worked well enough. The scanners mapped the data flows and identified the ship's basic functions. Life support, navigation, control, all exactly what they expected to find. But then they reached the crew quarters. Veltar frowned at his displays. The readings were strange. The human life signs were unlike anything in the collective's databases. Their brain patterns were chaotic, jumping from one thought to another with no clear pattern. It was like trying to map a storm. Admiral Veltar said, his voice uncertain. I'm getting unusual readings from the human crew. Their neural activity is very ... intense. Admiral Vexenol moved to look at the displays. Continue the scan. We need to understand how these creatures think. The scanners pushed deeper into the ship, reaching into the minds of the humans aboard. That's when everything went wrong. The first mind they touched belonged to Dr. Amy Peterson, the ship's doctor. She was in her medical bay, treating a crew member who had injured his hand in the engine room. But she wasn't just thinking about the medical procedure. At the same time, she was cleaning the wound. Dr. Peterson was also worrying about her sister back on Earth, remembering a conversation with the ship's captain from that morning, planning what to have for dinner, and composing a letter to her parents. Her mind held all these thoughts simultaneously, switching between them like a dancer moving to music only she could hear. The Zephyrian scanners tried to follow her thought patterns and immediately became confused. How could one mind think about so many different things at once? Where were the logical pathways? Where was the order? Veltar's head began to ache. The readings from the human doctor were causing feedback in his neural interface. Admiral, something is wrong. These thought patterns don't make sense. But Admiral Vexenol was staring at another display. Scanners had found the ship's engineer, Chief Petty Officer Paul Davis. He was working on the reactor core, his hands moving with practiced skill over the complex machinery. But his mind was somewhere else entirely. Paul was thinking about his daughter Katie, who had just turned 6 years old. He was planning her birthday party, remembering how she had laughed when he called her that morning, worrying that he was missing too much of her childhood by being in space. At the same time, he was calculating power flow rates, monitoring radiation levels, designing improvements to the engine efficiency. Love and mathematics swirled together in his mind like colors mixing on an artist's palette. The intensity of his feelings for his child created neural patterns that burned through the Zephyrian scanning equipment like acid. Two of Veltar's assistants collapsed at their stations, overwhelmed by the emotional chaos they were experiencing through the neural link. Their minds, trained for logical thought and collective harmony, couldn't process the raw intensity of human parental love mixed with technical expertise. Shut down the scan, Admiral Vexenol ordered, but it was too late. The scanners had already found their next target. Marine Sergeant Kelly Brooks was in the ship's gym, running combat drills with her squad. She moved through the training scenarios, with deadly precision, her mind calculating angles and distances, threat assessments, and tactical responses, but mixed with her military thinking were other thoughts that made no sense to the aliens watching. Kelly was thinking about the book she was reading, a romance novel she had hidden in her locker. She was remembering her first kiss with her girlfriend. Back on Mars, she was planning to redecorate her apartment when she got home. And underneath it all was a deep, unshakable determination to protect her fellow humans. Even if it meant dying in the process, the combination of lethal tactical knowledge and tender human emotions created a feedback loop that overloaded the Mind Probe's main scanning computer. Sparks flew from control panels across the bridge. The lights flickered and went out, but the worst was yet to come. Captain Steve Collins was on the bridge of the USS Ranger, unaware that aliens were scanning his ship. He was thinking about the mission ahead, evaluating the risks to his crew, remembering the friends he had lost in previous battles. His mind was a perfect storm of strategic thinking, protective instincts, and emotional connections. When the Zephyrian scanners touched his consciousness, they found something that terrified them. Here was a mind that could hold contradictory ideas without breaking. A leader who could order people to their deaths while loving them like family. A human who could be completely logical and completely emotional at the same time, Captain Collins, was simultaneously calculating the odds of survival in their next battle and composing a letter to the widow of a crew member who had died under his command. He was planning tactical maneuvers and remembering his wedding day. He was accepting the harsh realities of war and believing absolutely in the ideals he was fighting for. The scanning array exploded. Veltar was thrown from his station as electricity arced across the bridge. 3 more officers collapsed, their minds shattered by contact with the incomprehensible chaos of human consciousness. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in red as alarms screamed throughout the ship. Admiral Vexenol stood in the wreckage of his bridge and realized that his people had encountered something beyond their understanding. The humans weren't just different from other species. They were fundamentally incompatible with every known form of consciousness in the galaxy. As medical teams rushed to help the injured officers, Admiral Vexenol made a decision that would echo across the stars. He opened a priority channel to the collective's high command and spoke words that would change everything. Mark human vessels as Category Omega, no scanning, no deep contact. These creatures are psychologically incompatible with all known mental architectures. They are too dangerous to probe. The warning spread through Zephyrian space within hours. Soon other species would learn the same lesson. The humans had a weapon more powerful than any gun or bomb. They had minds that could drive other species insane simply by thinking the way they naturally thought, and they didn't even know it. In the great crystal archives of the Galactic Intelligence Consortium, xenopsychologist Thrender floated in his containment tank, reviewing the latest reports. His species, the Aquarii, lived in liquid methane and thought in mathematical patterns that other races found beautiful but cold. Today, those patterns were showing him something that disturbed his ordered mind. Report after report told the same story. The crystalline hegemony had tried to scan a human merchant vessel called the Morning Star. Their empathic navigators would sense the emotions of entire star systems, had attempted to read the crew's intentions. The feedback from just 5 human minds had left them unable to function for 3 weeks. Thrender's tentacles moved through the data crystals, pulling up more files. The HFY War Council had deep scanned a human medical ship during a border dispute. Their battle computers, designed to process tactical information from 1,000 sources simultaneously, had crashed completely when they encountered human medical ethics. The strangest part was what the humans had been thinking about. Dr. Susan Walsh, chief medical officer, had been treating wounded soldiers from both sides of the conflict. In her mind, she held the absolute certainty that all life was precious, combined with the practical knowledge of how to kill efficiently if needed to save others. She could perform surgery to save an enemy soldier's life, while simultaneously planning how to defend her patients if the ship was attacked. The HFY computers couldn't process this contradiction. How could someone be completely committed to preserving life and completely prepared to take it at the same time? Their logic circuits had simply given up trying to understand. Thrender moved to another section of the archives. Here were reports. From the ethereal collective, beings of pure energy who existed as living thought. They had attempted to communicate directly with human consciousness during a first contact scenario. The experience had been so traumatic that 3 of their members had voluntarily dissolved themselves rather than continue existing with the memory of human mental chaos. The report was written in light patterns that hurt to read. Human consciousness operates on principles that contradict the fundamental nature of organized thought. They maintain multiple contradictory beliefs simultaneously without experiencing cognitive dissonance. They make emotional decisions while believing they are being logical. They sacrifice themselves for strangers while planning for their own futures. They are incapable of true collective thought, yet they cooperate more effectively than species. With shared consciousness, they are mentally impossible, yet they exist. Meanwhile, across the galaxy on the USS Defiance, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Peter Stone was having a conversation with Captain Morrison that neither of them realized was being monitored by alien intelligence services. "Captain, I've been reviewing the psychological profiles of the crew," Dr. Stone said as he entered the captain's ready room. "Everything looks normal, but I have to ask, why do you think those alien ships are keeping their distance?" Jake Morrison looked up from his reports. The Zephyrian fleet was still maintaining their circle around the Defiance, close enough to keep them under observation, but far enough away to avoid any kind of detailed scanning. "I've been wondering the same thing. Peter, they have us outgunned 10-1, but they're acting like we're the dangerous ones." Dr. Stone sat down across from the captain. "I intercepted some interesting chatter from our communications department. Lieutenant Rachel Mills has been monitoring alien transmissions across 17 different frequency bands. She's found references to something called Category Omega protocols in at least 6 different languages." "Category Omega?" Jake frowned. "That sounds serious. Get stranger, Captain." Rachel found shipping manifests from 3 different species that specifically route their merchant vessels around human space. Not through it, around it. They're adding weeks to their travel time just to avoid us. Jake leaned back in his chair. "That doesn't make sense. We've never been hostile to peaceful traders. Hell, we barely have enough ships to patrol our own territory, let alone threaten anyone else." Dr. Stone pulled out his tablet and showed Jake a map of local space. "Look, at this, Captain, there are trade routes from the past 5 years. Every major shipping lane that used to pass through human space has been rerouted. The Vegan Commerce Guild, the Tau Ceti Freight Cooperative, even the independent smugglers, they're all avoiding us." Jake studied the map. The pattern was clear. Once you saw it, human space had become a hole in the galactic economy, a region that everyone went around instead of through. "Have we done something to offend them?" "That's what I thought at first," Dr. Stone said. "But I did some research. Remember the incident with the hegemony last year? One of their crystal ships had that navigation failure?" Jake nodded. "Claimed it was a technical malfunction. Asked for assistance. We helped them repair their systems. Seemed grateful enough. I don't think it was a malfunction, Captain. I think they tried to scan the USS Liberty when it responded to their distress. Call Commander Nancy Torres filed a report about strange energy readings right before the hegemony ship went dark." Dr. Stone pulled up another file. "And here's something interesting from the medical databases. I've been tracking psychological trauma cases among alien species over the past 2 years. There's been a 400% increase in what they call cognitive dissonance syndrome among aliens who have had close contact with human vessels." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying we're making them sick just by being near them?" I think it's more than that, Captain. I think there's something about the way human minds work that other species can't handle. Makes us fundamentally different from every other form of consciousness in the galaxy." On the bridge, Communications Officer Lieutenant Rachel Mills was discovering just how different they were. She had been monitoring alien communications for 3 hours, and the patterns she was finding were disturbing. "Commander Hayes," Rachel called to Lisa at the tactical station. "You need to see this." Lisa walked over to Rachel's station.
"Ow."
"What have you got?" "I've been tracking communication patterns from 17 different species over the past 6 months. Every single one of them has added human vessels to what they call a contact restriction list. were classified alongside plague ships and unstable antimatter haulers. Lisa frowned. That doesn't sound good. It gets worse. I found a communication from the Altarian Science Council to their exploration fleets. They're specifically ordering their ships to maintain a minimum distance of 100,000 kilometers. From any human vessel, it's beyond the range of most weapon systems. Why would they do that? Rachel pulled up another display. Because of this. I found records of 43 separate incidents over the past year where alien ships attempted to scan human vessels. In every single case, the aliens suffered what they describe as severe psychological trauma or cognitive system failure. Lisa studied the data. Cognitive system failure? What does that mean? I'm not sure, but listen to this transmission. I intercepted from a Zephyrian medical ship. Rachel played an audio file. The alien voice was high and musical, but the translator made the words sound flat and clinical. Patient exhibits classic symptoms of consciousness fragmentation following unauthorized neural contact with human thought patterns. Recommended treatment is memory suppression and extended meditation. Patient must not be exposed to human contact for minimum of 1 solar cycle. Note, this is the 15th case this month. Recommend immediate implementation of Category Omega. Protocols for all human vessels. Lisa and Rachel looked at each other. Category Omega again, Lisa said. What do you think it means? I think it means they're scared of us, Rachel replied. Not our weapons or our ships. They're scared of our minds. Navigator Commander Chris Taylor had been listening to the conversation while plotting course corrections. You know what's really strange? He called over from his station. I've been tracking the movement patterns of alien fleets for the past 6 months. Every time they detect a human ship, they change course to avoid us. Not just military vessels, merchant ships, research, vessels, even passenger liners. He brought up a 3-dimensional display of local space. Look at this pattern. The Zephyrian Collective, the Tau Ceti Alliance, it's the Vegan Commerce Guild. They're all using the same avoidance protocols. They maintain a minimum distance of 50,000 kilometers from any human vessel at all times. Lisa studied the display. That's not normal diplomatic protocol. It's quarantine behavior. Exactly, Chris said. They're treating us like we're contagious. But contagious with what? The answer was becoming clear to the crew of the USS Defiance, even if they didn't fully understand it yet. Humanity had stumbled into the galaxy, carrying something more powerful than any weapon, a form of consciousness. So alien to every other species that mere contact with human thought patterns could drive other beings insane. They were living weapons, and they didn't even know it. As the alien ships continued their careful watch from a safe distance, the humans aboard the Defiance went about their daily routines, completely unaware that their very thoughts were considered a threat to galactic peace and security. The greatest irony was that humans were probably the most peaceful. Sub-Commander Kexanol was young for a Zephyrian officer. At only 60 years old, he had not yet learned the wisdom that came with age. While his elders spoke in whispers about Category Omega protocols and the dangers of human contact, Kexanol saw only an opportunity to prove himself. He stood in the secondary control room of the Zephyrian flagship, watching the human vessel through the viewports. The USS Defiance hung in space like a metal predator, bristling with weapons and radiating an aura of barely controlled violence. To Kexanol, it looked primitive, crude. How could such a backward species frighten the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy? Admiral Crixtal had specifically forbidden any scanning attempts. But Kexanol believed his superior was being overly cautious. The stories about human consciousness were probably exaggerated. Fear had a way of growing in the telling, turning minor incidents into legends of terror. Kexanol activated his personal scanning array, a small device built into his workstation for analyzing mineral samples and stellar phenomena. It was not as powerful as the ship's main scanners, but it should be enough to get a basic reading on the human vessel. It's just a quick peek to see what all the fuss was about. He aimed the scanner at the USS Defiance and activated it on its lowest setting aboard the human ship. Lieutenant Commander Ben Carter noticed the scan immediately. His tactical board lit up with a soft warning tone. Captain, I'm detecting a low-level sensor probe from one of the alien ships. Captain Morrison looked up from his coffee. Are they scanning us? Yes, sir. Very subtle, but definitely active. It's like a passive sensor array trying to get basic readings. Morrison considered his options. The scan was barely detectable. Impose no immediate threat. Monitor it, but don't respond yet. Let's see what they're looking for. The Zephyrian scanner penetrated the outer hull of the Defiance easily. Kexenal smiled as data began flowing across his screen. The human ship's basic specifications appeared first. Length, mass, power output, crew complement, all exactly what he expected from such a primitive vessel. Then the scanner reached the crew quarters. Weapons. Specialist Danny Foster was cleaning his rifle in the armory when the alien probe touched his mind. Danny was a simple man who had joined the military to see the galaxy and maybe earn enough money to buy a farm back on Earth. Right now, he was thinking about three things at once. First, he was calculating the optimal firing patterns for the ship's main guns if they had to fight the alien fleet. His hands moved automatically over his weapon as he ran through targeting solutions and ammunition counts. Second, he was composing a love poem for his girlfriend Sarah, trying to find words that would capture how much he missed her smile. Third, he was planning modifications to the plasma rifle he was cleaning, ways to improve its accuracy and reduce its power consumption. The combination of lethal calculations, romantic poetry, and technical innovation swirled together in Danny's mind like a tornado. Kexenal's scanner tried to map the thought patterns and immediately began reporting error messages. How could one mind hold such contradictory concepts simultaneously? Military precision and artistic creativity existed in the same mental space without conflict. Love and death danced together in perfect harmony. The scanner's logic circuits began to overheat as they tried to process the impossible. Kexenal frowned at his display. The readings made no sense. He adjusted the scanner's sensitivity and pushed deeper into the human ship. Chief Engineer Kate Wilson was in the engine room, performing routine maintenance on the fusion reactor. Her hands worked with practiced skill while her mind juggled a dozen different concerns. She was monitoring radiation levels and coolant flow rates. But she was also worrying about her mother's health back on Earth. Mom had been sick lately. And Kate felt guilty about being so far away when her family needed her. At the same time, she was proud of the improvements she had made to the ship's engines. The efficiency was up 12% from last month, and she was already planning further modifications. She loved the complexity of the engineering challenges. The way all the systems worked together like a symphony of metal and energy. Kate Wilson's mind was a perfect example of human multitasking. Professional competence mixed with personal anxiety and creative satisfaction. She could hold worry and pride, fear and love. Technical knowledge and emotional attachment all at the same time, without any of them interfering with the others. The scanner tried to follow her thought patterns and crashed into a logical paradox. How could someone be completely focused on their work while being completely distracted by personal concerns? Where were the mental barriers that should separate different types of thinking? Sparks began to fly from Kexenal's workstation, ignored them and pushed the scanner even deeper into the human vessel. He was determined to prove that these creatures were not as dangerous as everyone claimed. The scanner found Captain Morrison on the bridge. Jake Morrison was thinking about the tactical situation while simultaneously remembering his daughter's last birthday party. He was calculating the odds of survival if the aliens attacked while also composing a letter to his wife. He was prepared to order his crew to their deaths, if necessary, while loving each of them like family. He accepted that war meant good people would die while believing absolutely that peace was worth fighting for. Morrison's consciousness was a storm of contradictions that somehow formed a coherent whole. Strategic thinking and emotional attachment existed in perfect balance. He could be completely logical and completely human at the same time, making decisions based on incomplete information while maintaining absolute confidence in his choices. Scanner touched Morrison's mind and immediately began sending feedback through Kexanol's neural interface. The young Zephyrion officer felt his thoughts being pulled in directions that should not exist. How could someone plan for battle while thinking about peace? How could duty and love strengthen each other instead of competing? Kexanol's workstation exploded in a shower of sparks and flame. Blast threw him backward across the control room. Emergency lights bathed everything in red as alarms screamed throughout the ship. 3 other Zephyrian officers who had been linked to the scanning network collapsed at their stations. Their minds had been touched by the chaos of human consciousness, and they could not process what they had experienced. One was muttering about mathematical poetry. Another was trying to calculate the emotional weight of starlight. The third was simply staring at the ceiling with wide, terrified eyes. Admiral Crixtal arrived in the control room within minutes. He took one look at the smoking wreckage and the injured officers and immediately understood what had happened. Medical team to secondary control. Priority 1 neural trauma protocols. As the medical team rushed to help the injured officers, Admiral Crixtal turned to the remaining crew. Who authorized this scan? Kexanol struggled to sit up, his blue skin pale with shock. I did, Admiral. I thought the stories were exaggerated. I thought we could handle a simple probe. Admiral Crixtal's eyes went completely black with anger. You thought wrong, Sub-Commander. You have just learned why humans are classified as Category Omega. Their consciousness operates on principles that can destroy any mind that tries to understand them. The medical team was working frantically over the collapsed officers. One of them looked up at the Admiral with concern. Sir, we have severe neural trauma here. Officer Tyleth is experiencing what appears to be emotional cascade failure. Officer, Namarin is trying to process contradictory logical statements simultaneously. Officer Zexpil appears to be in some kind of creative trance. Admiral Crixtal closed his eyes in frustration. This was exactly what he had hoped to avoid.
Can they
be treated? We're not sure, sir. These symptoms are unlike anything in our medical databases. The exposure to human thought patterns has caused fundamental changes in their neural architecture. They may never be able to function normally again. Across the void of space, Captain Morrison was still monitoring the alien fleet. Then, did they finish their scan? Yes, sir. Whatever they were doing, it stopped about 5 minutes ago. But, Captain, I'm reading some kind of emergency situation on their flagship. Power fluctuations, internal communications traffic, what looks like medical transports moving between ships. Morrison frowned. Medical transports? Did we do something to them? Not that I can tell, sir. We didn't fire a shot or even raise shields. All we did was sit here. Morrison stared at the alien ships on his display. Somewhere out there, people were suffering, and he had no idea why. The thought that his crew might be responsible for their pain disturbed him, even though he couldn't understand how it was possible. He had no way of knowing that simply by existing, by thinking the way humans naturally thought. His crew had just proven why the smartest aliens in the galaxy would never dare to scan a human warship again. The greatest weapon humanity possessed was not their guns or their ships. It was their minds and the beautiful, terrible chaos of human consciousness that no other species could safely touch. Captain Morrison watched the alien fleet through the main view screen and made a decision that would change everything. Whatever had happened aboard their ships, people were hurt, and that bothered him more than any tactical consideration. Lisa, open a channel to the alien fleet. I want to speak with their commander. Commander Hayes looked surprised. Sir, are you sure that's wise? We still don't know what caused their emergency. That's exactly why I need to talk to them, Morrison replied. If we did something to hurt them, I want to know what it was. If they need help, we should offer it. The main screen flickered and Admiral Crixtal appeared. The Zephyrian leader looked tired, his blue skin pale and his large black eyes filled with something that looked like fear. Behind him, Morrison could see crew members rushing back and forth, clearly dealing with some kind of crisis. Captain Morrison, Admiral Crixtal said, his musical voice strained. I must apologize. One of my officers acted against direct orders. He attempted to scan your vessel. Morrison frowned. Admiral, we detected the scan, but it seemed harmless enough. Did something go wrong with your equipment? There was a long pause before Admiral Crystal answered. Captain, I believe it is time you understood why your species frightens the galaxy. Would you be willing to participate in a limited neural communication? I can establish safeguards to protect both our minds from damage. Dr. Stone, who had been listening from his station, stepped forward. Captain, I'd recommend caution. We don't know what kind of mental contact they're talking about. Morrison considered the request. The alien admiral seemed genuine, and Morrison's instincts told him this conversation was important. What kind of safeguards are we talking about? Admiral, I will use translation buffers and emotional dampeners. The contact will be filtered through our computers to prevent direct mind-to-mind contact. It should be safe for both of us. Morrison nodded. Very well, Admiral. Dr. Stone, monitor my vital signs. If anything goes wrong, cut the connection immediately. The communication changed from audio-visual to something deeper. Morrison felt a strange tingling in his mind, as if someone was gently touching his thoughts. But the contact felt distant and safe, like hearing someone speak through thick glass. Admiral Crystal's voice came through the neural link, but now it carried emotions and concepts that couldn't be translated into words. Morrison felt the alien's curiosity, his fear, and his desperate need to make humans understand. Captain Morrison, may I show you how the galaxy sees your species? Images flooded Morrison's mind. He saw the research vessel Mind Probe, its bridge in ruins after attempting to scan a human ship. He felt the confusion and terror of Zephyrian scientists as they tried to understand human thought patterns. He witnessed the crystalline hegemony's navigators collapsing in agony after touching human emotions. Admiral, I don't understand. Did we do to them? You existed, Captain. You thought the way humans naturally think? And that way of thinking is incompatible with every other form of consciousness we have ever encountered. Dr. Stone joined the neural link, his medical training making him naturally curious about the phenomenon. Admiral, can you explain what you mean by incompatible? Admiral Crystal's response came as a flood of scientific data mixed with personal experience. Dr. Stone, every species in the galaxy evolved consciousness in one of two ways. Either we developed collective minds that share thoughts and emotions, or we developed individual logical minds that process information in linear patterns. Humans are the only species that developed individual consciousness combined with emotional thinking and the ability to hold contradictory ideas simultaneously. Morrison felt understanding beginning to dawn. You're saying we think differently? From everyone else? More than differently? Captain, you think in ways that our minds literally cannot process? When we scan your ships, we don't just detect your technology, we detect your thoughts. And your thoughts follow patterns that break our mental architecture. Dr. Stone leaned forward in fascination. Can you give us a specific example? The alien admiral paused, clearly choosing his words carefully. Dr. Stone, 5 minutes ago, while we have been talking, you have been simultaneously listening to our conversation, monitoring Captain Morrison's vital signs. Thinking about a medical journal article you read last week, worrying about a patient in your sickbay, planning what to have for dinner, and composing a letter to your brother. Your mind holds all of these thoughts at once, without any of them interfering with the others. Dr. Stone blinked in surprise. That's normal human multitasking. Everyone does that. No doctor, no other species does that when a Zephyrian thinks. About medicine, they think only about medicine. When a crystalline being experiences emotion, they experience only that emotion. The concept of thinking about multiple unrelated things simultaneously is not just foreign to us, it's impossible. For us, Morrison was beginning to understand the scope of the problem. So when you scan our ships and detect our thought patterns, your minds can't handle what they're seeing. Exactly, Captain. But it's worse than simple incompatibility. Your thought patterns are so chaotic and intense that they cause what we call cascade failures in other minds. When our scanners touch a human consciousness, we don't just fail to understand it. We experience psychological trauma that can last for years. Dr. Stone asked the question that was bothering all of them. Admiral, how many species know about this? All of them, Doctor. Word has spread throughout the galaxy over the past year. 17 major civilizations have classified humans as Category Omega, no scanning, no deep contact, no neural communication without extreme safeguards. The weight of this revelation settled over the bridge of the USS Defiance. They weren't just another species exploring the galaxy. They were walking psychological weapons that could drive other beings insane simply by thinking normally.
Admiral,
Morrison said slowly, "Why are you telling us this? Why risk contact at all?" Admiral Crixtall's emotions came through the link clearly. Respect, fear, and something that might have been admiration. Because your species deserves to know the truth, Captain, and because despite the danger you represent, we have come to understand that humans are not malicious. You don't mean to hurt us. You simply exist in a way that is incompatible with the rest of the galaxy. Dr. Stone had a disturbing thought. Admiral, if our thought patterns are so dangerous, why haven't other species tried to eliminate us? Some have considered it, Doctor? But there are two reasons why no one will attack humanity. First, your species' willingness to die for each other makes you extremely dangerous in conventional warfare. But more importantly, we have observed that humans are capable of growth and change in ways other species are not. Your chaotic thinking, while dangerous to us, also makes you incredibly adaptable and creative. Morrison felt a mix of pride and sadness. If so, we're useful to have around as long as you keep your distance. More than useful, Captain. Essential. Humans solve problems that no other species can even understand. You see connections where we see only chaos. You find solutions where we find only contradictions. The galaxy needs human creativity even. If we can't safely study how it works, the neural link carried one final emotion from Admiral Crixtall. Hope, Captain Morrison. I believe we can coexist peacefully. Your species continues to explore and grow, and we maintain our respectful distance. Trade can be conducted through intermediaries. Diplomatic communications can be filtered through computer systems. We can be neighbors without being enemies. Morrison felt relief flooding through him. Admiral, I think that sounds like a reasonable arrangement. Humanity has no desire to harm anyone, even accidentally. Then we have an understanding, Captain. The Zephyrian Collective will continue to honor Category Omega protocols regarding human vessels. We will spread word that humans are not hostile, merely incompatible. In return, we ask that your people respect our need for distance. As the neural link faded, Morrison looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him with a mixture of awe and concern. They had just learned that their very thoughts were weapons more powerful than anything in their armory. Captain, Doctor, Stone said quietly, how do we tell Earth Command that we're psychologically incompatible with the rest of the galaxy? Morrison smiled grimly. Very carefully, Doctor. Very carefully. On the main screen, the alien fleet was already beginning to withdraw, maintaining their respectful distance as they departed human space. As Morrison watched them go, he reflected on the strange irony of their situation. Humanity had spent centuries dreaming of joining a galactic community of advanced civilizations. Now they had found that community only to discover that their greatest strength was also their greatest barrier to inclusion. But perhaps that was okay. Humans would continue to be human, thinking their chaotic, contradictory, beautiful thoughts. And the galaxy would be a more interesting place because of it. Even if most species would never dare to get close enough to appreciate the view, the USS Defiance resumed its patrol, carrying its crew of living weapons who conquered the galaxy. Simply by being themselves,